The Marvel Cinematic Universe has undoubtedly earned a reputation for its intricately woven narratives, subtle Easter eggs, and a coherent internal logic that, while fantastical, maintains a semblance of order. However, the resolution of Captain America's storyline in Avengers Endgame has left fans grappling with lingering questions and a sense of disappointment. Despite attempts by directors Joe and Anthony Russo to shed light on Steve Rogers' time-traveling journey, the explanation seems to have only added to the confusion, especially for casual viewers or those accustomed to different time travel rules in other movies. Even though over 4 years have passed since the film's release, it is essential to understand how Steve Rogers returned the Infinity Stones and chose to live out his life in the past before reappearing as an old man in Avengers Endgame to adhere to established time travel rules. While the film provides a framework that logically aligns with the conclusion, many of us may misinterpret or overlook these nuances, particularly if we are not attuned to the specific rules set within the movie. The intricacies of time travel mechanics in Avengers Endgame can be lost on those who might not have paid closer attention or who might have brought preconceived notions from other cinematic interpretations of time travel. It is essential to recognize that when the film's resolution is viewed through the lens of its established rules, it brings clarity to Captain America's journey. However, the challenge lies in conveying this coherence to a diverse audience with varying levels of engagement, and that is precisely what we are here for. So without wasting another second, let's find out what exactly happened to Captain America in the ending of Avengers Endgame. How does the timeline work in the movie? In movies like Back to the Future and Hot Tub Time Machine, the concept of time travel typically follows a linear timeline, where changing the past directly impacts the future, and any alterations could lead to catastrophic consequences, often portrayed humorously, such as the universe exploding. However, the rules of time travel in the Marvel Cinematic Universe diverge significantly. Unlike the linear timeline concept, altering the past in the MCU does not directly affect the future. Instead, it creates a ripple effect, spawning new timelines and branches, delving further into the intricacies of the multiverse. According to the Ancient One's explanation, particularly when Bruce Banner seeks the Time Stone, we understand that creating new timelines can doom the original timeline in the absence of an Infinity Stone. Ultimately, Banner convinces her that returning the stones to their rightful places in the past will prevent these divergent timelines from causing chaos, ensuring they eventually merge seamlessly with the main timeline. However, Avengers Endgame introduced unexpected challenges to this plan. Loki's escape with the Tesseract and the alteration of events in the 2014 timeline, resulting in the deaths of Thanos and Nebula, created irreparable alternate timelines. Fortunately, the film acknowledges these unforeseen consequences, challenging the initial goal of neatly merging all timelines. The director's explanation of Old Man Captain America's ending. In an interview back in 2021, Avengers Endgame co-creator Joe Russo provided clarification on Steve Rogers' conclusion in the film, confirming that the character did indeed travel between realities. While Avengers Endgame marked the culmination of various storylines, including those of original Avengers like Iron Man and Black Widow, it left fans with lingering questions, particularly regarding Captain America's ambiguous ending. In the movie, Steve Rogers chooses to travel back in time to return the Infinity Stones to their original locations, and decides to stay in the past, fulfilling the dance promise he made to Peggy Carter in Captain America: The First Avenger. Although writers Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely believed Steve returned to his own past, the Russo brothers stated that Steve actually traveled to a branch reality just to be with Peggy and live out his life before returning to the original timeline as an aged senior, reappearing among other heroes. Joe Russo further emphasized that in their internal logic, Steve would have had no choice other than to travel back to the main timeline to pass his mantle on to Sam Wilson, aka Falcon, who in the comics has taken up the mantle of Captain America. Of course, the time travel mechanics established in Endgame initially created confusion around Steve's aging process, but the ultimate outcome is that Steve is alive in the present, even if he has significantly aged after living out his perfect life with Peggy. There is a weird theory that old Cap might have been a Skrull. There's been a lot of speculation surrounding Steve Rogers' time travel journey in Avengers Endgame, and interestingly enough, the writers and directors of the movie seem to have different ideas and theories about it. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, references to the original Captain America, were relatively frequent, casting a substantial influence on the storyline. However, the series deliberately chose not to provide a definitive answer to what happened to Steve Rogers, which seemed like a conscious decision taken by Kevin Feige. This intentional ambiguity, while strategic, left some fans frustrated with the lack of closure on whether Steve is alive, dead, or possibly on the moon. Although there is a theory suggesting that Old Man Steve might have actually been a Skrull. This speculation arises from Cap's decision to remain in the past with Peggy Carter, living out his subsequent decades peacefully, a rather reckless choice within the established rules of time travel, and one that could potentially spawn an entirely new timeline. This theory further proposes that the discrepancies in his sudden reappearance as an old man in Avengers Endgame's finale could actually be a Skrull in disguise, acting benevolently on behalf of Nick Fury to guide Sam Wilson toward the shield, or maybe a bad Skrull manipulating time to ensure it falls into the hands of John Walker through an alliance with Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, setting the stage for the Secret Invasion storyline. Essentially, this theory introduces the intriguing possibility that Old Man Steve may not be the genuine Captain America who went back to restore the Infinity Stones, but a Skrull assuming his role and influencing critical events in the MCU, for better or for worse. Now, the MCU has already introduced the Skrulls, and their collaboration with Captain Marvel and Nick Fury is common knowledge because their presence has been acknowledged since at least 1995 within the MCU timeline. And even in 2024, they maintain a close association with Fury. So the notion of a Skrull taking on the role of old Steve Rogers could have unfolded in two plausible scenarios, either at the request of Fury, Carol Danvers, or another party, or alternatively, more nefarious Skrulls with a future invasion plan might have independently orchestrated it as part of a broader scheme. Plus, the prospect of Chris Evans returning to the MCU raises the possibility of his involvement in Secret Invasion, where the Skrulls' role in Avengers Endgame could be revealed. Moreover, they might even persist in masquerading as Old Man Steve if their invasion plans necessitate it. While it is most definitely an unconventional and somewhat far-fetched theory, it surely presents just the kind of unexpected plot twist that could captivate fans and take them by surprise. Marvelous verdict. So it seems that Captain America did indeed create a branch reality, and at some point, he utilized a Pym particle to travel back to the prime reality and give the shield to Falcon. This implies that the Cap we saw at the end basically originates from the original timeline and is indeed the one we have been following for the past decade or so. However, the timeline Captain America lived in is not the same one that we have been observing, because in the main reality, Peggy did have a different husband than Steve Rogers. If you ask me, it is a somewhat bittersweet revelation, challenging the notion that Peggy and Steve were always together, which was a sentiment I personally held. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this revelation. Do you feel it provides clarity, or does it raise more questions for you? What are your thoughts on Old Man Cap's ending? Is there a possibility for him to be a Skrull? Let us know in the comment box below.